to sort of introduce what we're going to read. Last February, students at the law school, students, staff, workers, professors at the law school reclaimed this space that we're currently in the honor of Belinda Sutton, an enslaved woman who was owned by the royal family. And so we refer to this space as Belinda Hall in her memory. She was taken from her native Ghana when she was 12, and she worked for the royal family for 50 years until the Revolutionary War led Isaac Royal to flee. He was a loyalist. And in that moment, she took her freedom. I don't want to say her freedom was given to her because she seized it with her own power. And in 1783, she petitioned the Massachusetts General Court at a time when Black people were not recognized as people, as human beings in the laws of this new country. She petitioned the court for reparations for those 50 years of labor that she had given to the royal family, and she won. She won reparations, and so we as students gathered here and took inspiration from her strength and her courage. And I want to just read a few lines from her petition, and then Radhika will be reading a poem by Audre Lorde, because I think these are words that are important to speak in elite institutions like Harvard, which are institutions of privilege and power built on stolen land, built with enslaved labor. And I think it's important to hear these words. I think it's important for us as law students here, as workers and staff members and professors here to reflect on these words so that we can work towards a more liberatory future that doesn't re-inscribe hierarchies of power, doesn't re-inscribe racism and sexism and classism and homophobia, and that we're truly working towards a revolutionary future together. So to begin, the 70 years have rolled away since she, on the banks of the Rio de Valta, received her existence. For the mountains covered with spicy forests, the valleys loaded with the richest fruits, spontaneously produced, joined to that happy temperature of air to exclude excess, would have yielded her the most complete felicity, had not her mind received early impressions of the cruelty of men. For before she had 12 years enjoyed the fragrance of her native groves, and ever she realized the Europeans placed their happiness in the yellow dust which she carelessly marked with her infant footsteps, even when she, in a sacred grove, with each hand in that of a tender parent, was paying her devotions to the great Orissa, who made all things. An armed band of white men, driving many of her countrymen in chains, ran into the hallowed shade. Could the tears, the sighs, and supplications bursting from tortured parental affection have blunted the keen edge of avarice, she might have been rescued from agony, which many of her country's children have felt, but which none had ever described. Scenes which her imagination had never conceived of, a floating world, the sporting monsters of the deep, and the familiar meetings of billows and clouds strove, but in vain, to divert her melancholy attention from 300 Africans in chains, suffering the most excruciating torments, and some of them rejoicing that the pangs of death came like a balm to their wounds. 50 years her faithful hands have been compelled to ignoble servitude for the benefit of an Isaac Royal, until, as if nations must be agitated and the world convulsed for the preservation of that freedom which the Almighty Father intended for all the human race, the present war was commenced. The terror of men armed in the cause of freedom compelled her master to fly, and to breathe away his life in a land where lawless domination sits enthroned, pouring bloody outrage and cruelty on all who dare to be free. The face of your petitioner is now marked with the furrows of time, and her frame feebly bending under the oppression of years, while she by the laws of the land is denied the enjoyment of one morsel of that immense wealth, a part whereof hath been accumulated by her own industry, and the whole augmented by her servitude.
It's extremely heartening to be in the midst of such a wide and courageous community today on International Women's Day. And my only hope is that from this community we can share the spirit of struggle, courage, love, music, and lots of poetry. And in that vein, I just wanted to read Audre Lorde's A Litany for Survival. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going, in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once, before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures, like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive.